Let's catch up. Is Apple really working on a bigger 30+ inch iMac? And if so, why? And when? And who? What will Apple's M3 rollout look like? And AirPods, the next frontier for Apple Health? Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. I'm iCaveAnswers and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you. And I thought I'd get back to our roots with this one, and I'm trying to use it as a bit of a reset too. So get in your questions down in the comments with hashtag iCaveAnswers, and let's get into the actual show. Big iMacs. According to Marc Gurman, Apple is currently working on a bigger 30+ inch iMac, which I think we'd all been hoping for when the iMac redesign happened with the M1 model at 24 inches. Prior to the M1 iMac release, Intel models were offered in 21.5 and 27-inch variants with 4K and 5K resolutions respectively, and the new model boasts a 4.5K resolution. But remember when it arrived and everyone was hating the off-white bezels? Well, I love them and I hope they're here to stay, and I haven't heard that many complaints recently. But is it possible that Apple has skipped the M2 chip for the iMac while it was reworking these to get darker colours and bezels? It would look pretty epic in midnight like the MacBook Air that I have, I've got to say. Now, I was kind of convinced that Apple was doing what they did with the OG iMacs and just having the one size for the consumer desktop, but the addition of the 15-inch MacBook Air makes me think that this could actually be real, even though there's been no mention of this from Ross Displayman Young as far as I know. That being said, about the classic iMacs only coming in the one size, the G4 came in a 17-inch, and let me know if you want to see me unbox it. Apple was working on more displays. Perhaps the designers have pivoted to include a computer in the back of these displays. Now, 30+ inches could easily be 32 inches, which is the 6K Pro Display XDR territory. And if the display is going to be physically larger than the old iMacs, then it stands to reason that the resolution would probably increase as well. I just wouldn't hold your breath for ProMotion as well as a resolution increase. Now, I also wouldn't hold your breath for an iMac Pro, at least not in the way that we had it before. Apple's Intel iMac Pro was a stopgap measure while the trash can Mac Pro was taken out to the back of the field, shot and melted down for glue ahead of the current cheeseburger design that they released a couple of years later. Or even cheese grater. Sometimes recording at like midnight is not the best idea. That spot in the lineup is now being held down by the Mac Studio, paired up with an Apple display of some sort. Now that holds the more powerful chips, the M2 Max and M2 Ultra, although now the Mac Mini is also configurable with up to an M2 Pro chip, and there's a decent chance that that could appear in both sizes of the iMac going forward from the M3 generation onwards. The 24-inch version features active cooling, so there would be little difficulty in putting a Pro level chip in there, and even more thermal capacity in that 30+ inch version, although I don't think it would be enough for a Max chip, and certainly not for an Ultra. These things are still thinner than the MacBook Pro. In essence though, don't expect a Max or an Ultra chip in the iMac, but the base level and a Pro chip makes sense to me. And speaking of M3, what's that rollout going to look like? Well, I think that the iMac might well be at the forefront of this release this time, perhaps as soon as this fall, but only probably in the 24-inch chassis, as the larger version is likely to be a little way out just yet. The MacBook Air is the only model likely to be limited to only the base M3 chip, but given the 15-inch model release and the price drop on the 13-inch, I don't see these getting the new chips, at least until early in 2024, and I certainly don't see the 13-inch model getting updated before the 15-inch, which I know a few people have suggested. An M3 Mac Mini could be on the cards, with an M3 Pro model also coming early in 2024, alongside the MacBook Pros with Pro and Max chips. But we're also hearing that the 13-inch MacBook Pro still won't let go and move towards the Lite. So could this be the portable model that Apple releases with the M3's first round, touch bar and all? I mean, I don't see a good reason for anyone to choose it right now, but being the only laptop with an M3 inside at the outset might well be one of the few ways to make it mildly interesting, at least for a couple of weeks again. And onto the AirPods. According to Bloomberg's Marc Gurman, Apple is developing multiple threads of health features for the AirPods Pro. First of all, Gurman doubles down on the temperature sensors. The ear is an ideal place to get a core temperature reading, and far better than the Apple Watch's wrist measurements. That said, it's also pretty uncomfortable trying to get the Apple Watch in your ear, believe me. While the Apple Watch is able to get continuous measurements as it's worn pretty much consistently, most people use their AirPods multiple times a day, so there should still be enough data there, and given the more accurate measurement position, these could actually alert you to a fever with decent reliability. Of course, there's something else that your ears can be useful for, which is hearing. Apple, according to Gurman, is working on not only the ability to use AirPods as a form of hearing aid, but also for assessing your hearing by playing different tones and sounds to see how your hearing is getting on, if it's deteriorating over time, and if there's correlation to the noise levels that would have been captured by your Apple Watch. And it does get worried, doesn't it, when you dry your hands under a hand dryer, forgetting that your ears aren't inside it. Anyway, let me know if you're excited about those new features for AirPods. Now, I'm going to be travelling later this week to Silverstone for the Formula 1 Grand Prix with work and camping nearby, so let me know as well any tech adjacent camping tips that you have down in the comments, things that you think I should take, things that I should leave at home, and of course you can leave any other questions you have about Apple stuff down in the comments using hashtag iCaveAnswers, like this one from Evan Rogers, who asks, iCaveAnswers, will Microsoft ever offer a Game Pass streaming app for Apple OSs? tvOS in particular seems like a perfect candidate for the service. Now, I am not a big gamer, but I did a little bit of research on this, and they actually offer the PC Game Pass already on Mac OS, so I don't know if that has to go through a browser or if there is an actual app for it. They are, they are working with Apple on stuff already. Now, it does only say Mac OS, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is compatible on Apple Silicon. It may only be on Intel Macs at the moment, or it might have to run through Rosetta, so it might be a little bit slower, but I think Microsoft is showing willing here, and I think hopefully with Apple's porting system that has come at WWDC, where there is a lot more information about how game developers can port their games over, and actually you can kind of test to see how much work it would be using an equivalent of Wine or Crossover. I think the future looks pretty good for Apple gaming. Fingers are crossed super hard. But you can use stuff like the Nvidia version, which I believe pretty much streams games from the cloud. That works on Apple, because my kids have been playing Fortnite on their iPads with it. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to the Patreons for their support. And don't forget, put your questions down in the comments, hashtag iCaveAnswers, and I'll love to answer them in the next show. See you then. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.